Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to IFFGD's Research Award Winner Series titled Where Are They Now? This program was designed not only to acknowledge this year as being IFFGD's 30th anniversary, but to also reconnect with some of our past IFFGD Research Award winners. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Kovacic, who was our 2018 IFFGD Research Award winner for pediatrics in clinical, basic, and translational science. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Kovacic.
Thank you. I'm happy to join.
Awesome. So can you please tell us just a little bit about yourself and also your current research focus?
Yes, I'm an associate professor of pediatric GI at the Medical College of Wisconsin and Children's Wisconsin Hospital. I've been there for 6 years now, and I'm a clinical researcher. My main interests are in the areas of neuromodulation and functional GI disorders, or disorders of brain-gut interaction, which is what the IFFGD is all about. I have particular interested in gastroparesis and patients with chronic nausea, and I see a lot of adolescents with these disabling symptoms, and that evolves often into dysautonomia, autonomic nervous system dysfunction. So I see a lot of these patients, and as well as cyclic vomiting syndrome. So there's a whole complex world of complicated GI disorders here that I try to manage and investigate further in my clinical research.
Yeah, and really helping those patients better the quality of life for sure. So what research topics are you currently working on?
So currently I run an NIH-funded clinical trial for adolescents with chronic nausea, and the main goal here is to really characterize these patients. There's really no prospective data on these adolescents who suffer from this disabling chronic nausea. We do a variety of phenotyping, clinical characteristics, as well as gastric motor function tests. We know a good number of these patients likely suffer from gastroparesis, delayed stomach emptying, and other disorders of gastric sensory motor function. The tests are limited to date. So part of this clinical trial, I have realized that we need to step it up a notch and investigate further the gastric motor function. So now what usually happens in research is that you start in one area, and then you find certain things, and you take it to the next level. So now I'm starting to focus and hone in on developing more better tools for diagnosing stomach function abnormalities, so gastric motor function issues. The current standardized tests that we have are decades old, and they're just no good. So there's a huge need to get away from all these so-called normal tests that we get, and I think one of my biggest missions is and problems I see with these patients is the labeling of psychosomatic disorders in many of these patients who probably have a true physiologic problem. So that's really my passion, to find these patients better over time, develop more better diagnostic tools. And the other thing I've been working on is non-invasive therapies. I worked a lot on auricular neurostimulation, which has been exciting. Some of our work led to FDA approval of an auricular neurostimulation therapy for irritable bowel syndrome in children. And it's the first FDA-approved therapy for IBS in kids. So that kind of tells us how little research we have going on in these functional bowel disorders, especially in kids. It's very sad. I think there's like 8 or 9 trials in the history as far as pharmacotherapy. There are other trials now ongoing with mindfulness therapy, psychological interventions, but we are really lacking behind in research in this area. So that's kind of a summary of my passion, and I can go on and on about this.
Well, I mean, your passion definitely shows, especially just being a researcher and also just making sure the patients are first in all of the research that you do. So We thank you for that. And I know you briefly touched a little bit on advancing diagnostic tools and then also just helping children with IBS. But what else do you hope to gain from some of these studies that you're performing? And how do you think that this might increase our understanding of gastrointestinal disorders in children or adults?
Yeah, there's a lot to gain. I think through these studies, I see many different avenues to develop better diagnostic tools, which ultimately really helps direct therapy and develop these novel, non-invasive therapies, because we are very, very, in Western medicine, stuck on pharmacological agents, and we are treating these poor patients and children with antidepressants, and it doesn't work or has side effects, and it's just not fun. So families are very excited about. There's a very high patient satisfaction about what these new novel neurostimulation therapies. So I think neurostimulation of the GI tract is really an emerging field that we need to focus more on, and I think getting away from a lot of the old school tests and motility testing in particular, like sticking catheters into patients and just looking at the contractility of stomach or of the GI tract, I should say. It's we need new things. We need to advance research in this field and not be stuck on this old school test. Other things that I think will come out here is that I focus a lot on autonomic nervous system function, and we have developed a really nice multi-field collaborations with neuroscientists and psychologists. So one of the very front workers that I'm lucky to collaborate with and who's become my mentor is Dr. Stephen Porges of Indiana University, and he's and his team with Jacek Kolas are really at the cutting edge forefront of looking at heart rate variability testing and non-invasive measures of cardiac autonomic tone. So Dr. Porges is a founder of the polyvagal theory, and he's a big name in the psychology world. And I think we are sort of stuck in our different fields and we do our own thing. But here we've really found some nice collaborations where we are able to teach each other. I've learned so much from working with these guys. And I think I can bring a little bit to that pot too. And I do a lot of the clinical trials, and then they help me analyze. And we're just learning so much and teaching each other. And I think this is the key to taking brain gut disorders to the next level, because it's not just the gut, it's not just the brain, it's everything, and it's working in consort. And unfortunately, everything is intertwined, and the autonomic nervous system has a huge role here, carrying those brain gut signals. And so what we're finding is a lot of abnormalities in the autonomic signaling in many patients with adolescents with functional GI disorders. So I think over time, we will not call this functional GI disorders, has kind of a wrong connotation even. Again, many labeling with the psychiatric problem. There's something wrong. We know more and more from functional connectivity studies of the brain that there are true physiological problems. But then the psych and the mental health is a big part of it. And you have anxiety and stressors, those disorders actually get worse, and insults. So lots to talk about here, but I wanted to mention how I think the collaborations within the different fields, and then a lot of multi-center collaborations between pediatric neurogastroenterology. I run a multi-center registry working on neuromodulation therapies. That's very important. We're starting to work more and more across pediatric neurogastro. I think taking a little bit of example from the adults, I think they've done a better job over time to collaborate with each other. So I think that will improve. And another disease that I'm very passionate about is to solve the mysteries of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And these patients have connective tissue disorders, and they overlap with autonomic nervous system dysfunction. And there's a huge amount of misdiagnosis, delayed time to diagnosis. And these patients, 90+%, if not almost everybody, suffer from functional GI disorders. So, my upcoming project is going to look at the genomics, gastric physiology, autonomic physiology in these patients as well. So I got a lot going on, which is exciting.
Well, yeah, I was about to say that's very exciting to just know that even just one researcher is so involved in really advancing the field of GI in many different ways. And I think one thing there that you touched on while answering that question is how you're bringing together just every aspect of a healthcare team in order to research and really touch on each thing that really impacts a person who is living with any chronic illness. So I think that's really cool to kind of see that coming out of your lab as well. And out of all of the research that you have been involved in or even led yourself, what would you say would be your most successful research study?
Well, I think picking up and achieving a small, actually pretty small grant from ANMS, the American Gastroenterology and Motility Society, and then being able to sort of scramble and get donations and this and that to put together a really big clinical trial. We recruited 100 patients in a year. It was a big effort. I was very proud of it. And I did all this really mostly by myself, and carried the therapy. I put this therapy on the ear. It's an auricular ear neurostimulation therapy. That led to we just kind of kept going and kept going, seeing really nice effects. We were blinded to the two different treatment groups, but you could just see that like there are a good number here that's just the life is changing for. So it was just a very exciting clinical trial that started with a tiny grant and helped me elevate as a both like the fascination about the field and the science and how one just little idea can lead to so many things, and then led to an FDA approval for a new therapy that's now, I think, over 20 centers in the US have started using it. So I think I'm pretty clear that that's one of my main achievements so far, but there's more to come.
Oh, definitely more to come. I mean, that's awesome to know that, something that's really impacting those who live with GI illnesses, it's really helping, and you've been involved in that. And so congratulations. Even though it was a small fund, I think it's important for everyone listening to know that funding is very crucial for researchers to be able to do what they are doing. So anything really does help.
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight that really this could make a big difference in the world of science to help junior investigators. If you can identify the ones that have promising proposals and are ambitious, then that's what makes a difference. It is so hard to, nobody's going to get a grant unless you have something to start with, and people really give up, don't even try. That's so hard to get NIH funding. So this has helped me then get actually an NIH K23, which is a career development award. So this is a 5-year grant that I'm able to do all the other studies and have protected time. So as a clinician, you really don't have any time to do all this research unless you have specific dedicated time through research grants.
Yes. So hopefully more, we can't wait to see the more to come from your lab, that's for sure. So you've touched a little bit on some of the grants that you have received, especially from NIH. But what other research acknowledgements have you received since winning the IFFGD award in 2018?
Well, I'm really happy to achieve that one. It was just very honorable, looking at the people who got it before me, and I think the IFFGD awards was great as a sort of a booster to your research career. It came at a nice time as well, so I was very thankful for that. But yeah, I have had now a grant from Dysautonomia International Society that we're just starting another study in dysautonomia patients, and involves the gastric stomach MRI test. I have achieved or got an award from the NASPGHAN Society for it's called the Ballestieri Award in Research. NASPGHAN is the North American Society for Pediatric Gastroenterology, Hepatology, and Nutrition. That's a real tongue twister. I have also got some support and donations through the EDS, Ehlers-Danlos Society, that I'm really thankful for, and something that's very close to my heart is the cyclic vomiting syndrome, which is a group of disorders that's also functional GI disorders and very disabling vomiting condition. And I run this, we call it CVS, and I run the CVS program at Children's Wisconsin. And we have a little bit of the mecca of CVS here, thanks to Dr. B. Lee, who trained me in this disease. And he was kind of the guru of pediatric CVS. And we have an adult expert as well, Dr. Megha Thiessen in Milwaukee. So we really attract CVS patients from all over the country, even all over the world, sometimes international referrals. So I've learned a lot about CVS over the years. And I've done some research with auricular therapy for cyclic vomiting syndrome as well, and that's not been published yet, but that's looking very encouraging. On the Cyclic Vomiting Society, CVS Association, it's called, has helped donate for these small studies, and I'm very involved with. Now I actually lead the CVS update in the CVS treatment guidelines, diagnosis and treatment guidelines, and that's also sponsored by CVSA, CVS Association, and coming through NASP again. So that's some very important work coming out probably in the next year or so. That's going to help our clinicians diagnose and manage CVS, which is another disabling functional GI disorder.
Yes, definitely a disorder that really impacts the quality of life for many patients. So that is exciting to know that there's more to come, especially in the near future, being a year away from us. I know you talked a little bit about some of your passion at the beginning of our interview, but what specifically do you enjoy about being a researcher?
I think it's the kind of challenges and journey to get every grant and see the publication sort of the fruit of your labor. It's really exciting work, especially when you can see a direct clinical translation to most of the work. So I have worked in the lab as well, and don't find that as exciting, but there is a lot of people on lab research that have so much fun what they do. I'm sure they enjoy it as well, but I particularly like clinical research because it's so translatable and you see so many kind of immediate effects. Doesn't always work, and it can be very frustrating. It's difficult to write grants, but I feel like it's this journey of grant writing and manuscript writing and then getting things accepted. And it's I was thinking it's a little bit like being an athlete and playing games and winning tournaments. And I used to be an athlete, so I feel like there's some similarities. And a lot of people think research is boring, but it's a lot of fun. And the great part is too that all the connections you form and the teamwork. So I have such a huge team of players and from research coordinators that I talk to every hour during the day almost, and we coordinate every little thing about the clinical trials. There is just so much that goes into doing a good clinical trial. And having a nice research staff. We have research nurses who help perform the studies because they're not just going to happen. And you have to design and oversee everything, and it comes into regulatory things and ethics approvals. It's just another area that it just needs. It can be daunting, but even that part can be fun. And all the work that you do within the team is really what I enjoy the most. And then it comes to the collaborations, even with people now in London, UK, Europe, as well as different centers in America. And there are some of these investigators that I talk to like almost every week, and I still haven't met, but we are really kind of close friends, and I find that it's kind of fun. And now over Zoom, you can do everything. So.
Yeah, especially with the time now, we're all collaborating virtually, but I think just knowing that it's research going on in so many areas and so many parts of the world, and it's just all ways to kind of bring together and really focus on the patient needs through the research and how can you better help the quality of life for these patients. That's so cool that, just your touch on why you enjoy being a researcher. I think that's a great perspective. So we've talked a little bit about some of the gap needs that are in the area, but what are specific gap needs that you see in research? And how do you hope that maybe research from your lab can fulfill some of those gap needs in the near future?
I think specifically talking about functional GI disorders, there's just so much more mechanistic knowledge that needs to be gained. but what truly is going on here, and what role does anxiety and psychology play? What is the actual mechanisms of these brain gut disorders? How does the brain and the gut interact to cause these like very disabling conditions? Why are some worse than others? And as far as different levels of complexity in patients, and then how could we help them? So I think I could see the research that we're starting to do now. What we already done is making a difference as far as therapeutics, and neurostimulation therapies is really exploding everywhere. I'm also starting a new interesting acoustic vagal nerve therapy, so a music listening program that I think will help many patients with functional GI disorders, but I've yet to pursue it. It's coming soon. But I think another area where there's a huge lack is this diagnosis capabilities for specifically gastric function disorders. And I think that I will hope to make a little difference over time. It's going to take a long time, but hopefully something will come out of it.
Well, I think we do know a lot that there's definitely some gap needs in the area of functional GI disorder, but like you said, it does take time, but research takes time. And if you're developing really good care for that for patients and advanced diagnostic tools, then that will take time. But we just appreciate all of your hard work that you do in the field, and also the team that you have behind you. Just thank you so much for all of your hard work in the field and to further advance some of those things.
Thank you so much. It's great to hear.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to our Research Award winner series titled Where Are They Now? Where today we've had a chance to really catch up with Dr. Kovacic, and we've learned a little bit about her journey through research. So thank you so much, Dr. Kovacic, for just sharing your insights on this research topic.
Thank you. Thanks for the award.